Want to just show you some footage we got out of Tehran with a statue. Takes me back to the old Saddam Hussein days, a statue coming down. Every dictator has to have that day when the statue comes down. Let's have a look. It's happened in Tehran. Actually in Fars province, not Tehran. But I knew that. I mean,
yes, well, I mean,
immediately.
Although, I mean, I just would caution you, Rowan, let's not have any sort of Saddam Hussein triumphalism, because let's not mention that.
Yeah,
because
that is precisely. It's nice to see a statue going down for a good reason, right?
Yeah, but there are many well-meaning, genuinely pro-American people who are very worried about what's happening right now because of Iraq and Syria and, you could say, Libya and all the other sort of intervention that's happened that's ended in disaster. Iran is different, and we've explained for the last hour and a bit why it is different, but I can understand why there are people, particularly in the States, who are looking on going, why are we risking our people? Why are we spending billions, perhaps, interfering in yet another country and trying to engineer regime change? How is this America first? And, James, that's going to be something that Donald Trump's going to have to deal with.
Well, yeah, and look, I've had people in my messages all morning. They call themselves 2016 Trump Republicans. They voted for him, the first time around, supported him, then on the basis of that, no more foreign interventionisms. And there is some concern about this, that how is this going to go? I was really interested when we spoke to our friend...
John Honderacre.
No, not John Honderacre, Daniel, earlier, about what the next steps are for Iran. And, it is great to be thrilled, and I am, it is unreservedly good news that the Ayatollah and all of his mates were dumb enough to get together in a conference room and not have a Zoom call so that they could hit them in one place. Well, that's apparently what happened, which is amazing to me. But this is the big question. What comes next? Day 2, day 3, day 50, day 100. This is where the crucial thing happens. And let's remember also the organization of the Iranian government. There's the military wing and there's the IRGC and all of that, but then there's also the whole political parliamentary apparatus which still exists and which apparently seems to have been left untouched. So let's just see how this goes.
Yep.
Well,
I just quickly want to remind people, though, the reason I wanted to show that statue coming down is we had last August, in what I still say is one of Australia's greatest days of shame, we had 300,000 or something, or however many it was, people marching across the Sydney Harbour Bridge under or alongside a banner of the Ayatollah Khamenei. So the tentacles from the Ayatollah Khamenei spread around the world. Now, they go, oh, we didn't know the post was there or whatever. The reality is the tentacles of this vile, evil regime spread around the world. It wasn't just the Middle East. It's infected the whole planet since 1979. Good riddance, they're gone. Fantastic news. Now let's have a chat to Robert Gregory from the Australian Jewish Association. Robert, great to see you. Big day, fantastic day. Do you share any reservations? James has just been saying, America getting involved in another long war. What's your point of view, Robert?
Well, as everyone is saying, we'll have to see how this develops. But for me, it's bringing back memories of those images of the fall of the Soviet Union. So I'm hopeful that this will represent a positive change. The Islamic Republic has been around for decades. Its tentacles have stretched around the world like the Soviet Union did. So if indeed this regime is out the door and is heading away, I think we're going to see that sort of positive development. And I'm really hopeful. You mentioned those people marching on the bridge. As I was driving into the studio, I was hoping that all these people that have been marching every week against so-called injustices would be out there today celebrating. But sadly, I didn't come across any of them. So they must have slept in or something, but disappointing.
Rita.
Oh, yeah, the Free Iran movement never really took off, did it? We've wanted to free Palestine, but there's not been much said about freeing Iran. How do you see the relationship between Israel and its neighbours going forward? Whatever happens in Iran, whether they go to a monarchy or a republic model, What do you think the long-term plan of Israel is?
Well, you're right that the Free Iran movement didn't really take off amongst the left, but among the Persian diaspora, as you would know, it really did. And I was honoured to speak at several rallies, and they've been protesting and rallying, and it's going to be great to be celebrating with them. The Iranian people are a modern, freedom-loving people, and I think this is really, really positive for the region. A lot of people have been talking about, will Israel and Saudi Arabia sign an agreement? I think the real peace and the real agreement will be between an Iran under a new government, a democratic government, and Israel. I think those forces will be unstoppable compared to some of the backwards regimes we see in the Middle East, whether some of the monarchies like Qatar or some of the dysfunctional states like Syria and Libya. I think this really could be something positive, and I think it's going to have an impact on all the proxies around the region. We see Hezbollah, Hamas, they're staying out of this war. Nobody imagined that would happen, but they've been so weakened by years of war and Israel, and particularly Prime Minister Netanyahu's response to October 7, that I think the Middle East is completely changed now. And this will allow also the United States to withdraw focus and withdraw forces and focus on some of the other threats like China.
Well, I mean, Robert, you mentioned Qatar and also all these various proxy groups. You've got proxies operating in Iraq, Syria, the Houthis, all sorts of other organizations. Now, even if Iran goes away, will Qatar still be able, in your opinion, to keep playing its double game? Because, you know, it's such a weird thing that Qatar does. On the one hand, you know, they present themselves as modern and pro-Western, and they fly an airline with a bar in business class. And then on the other hand, they're supporting these jihadist kind of efforts around the world. Will they be able to continue playing that double game? Have they got the message that they're next if they keep trying that?
That's a really good question, because one of the few foreign policy criticisms that one could make of the Trump administration is the tolerance of Qatar, the accepting of the plane, the basing of the US forces there. And we would hope for a change in that area. Qatar and Turkey are the two major Sunni sponsors of the Muslim Brotherhood. But I think Iran is still a league of its own. Qatar doesn't have the missiles. It wasn't developing a nuclear program. So I think it is a different league. But I mean, once the Islamic regime is hopefully removed from Iran, Qatar will be the largest sponsor of terrorism. And we know they bought a large chunk of Virgin in Australia. We know that Al Jazeera is broadcast on our taxpayer-funded broadcasters. So I think there needs to be a real look at Qatar and what they're doing in universities. But nothing can take away from the significance of what's happening in Iran.
And Robert, do you think this will play through to, for example, in our universities? We've seen anti-Semitism. We've seen this very strong pro-Palestinian push endlessly for 2 years. Do you think if the snake is decapitated, which it appears to have been, and somehow we do end up in a position where there is a secular government in Iran, do you think that will be the moment we can really start to wind back, even in the West, even in our universities, even in our schools, this endless pro-Islamist or pro-Palestinian or whatever it is teachings?
That would be amazing. But I think, unfortunately, these groups are going to find another snake. I think they'll find something to attach themselves to, whether it's radical communist ideas, whether it's some other Islamist group. I don't think the hate's going to end, unfortunately, but I think we'll see positive signs in the Middle East. And hopefully the news is not going to be dominated by wars across, Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, all these tensions everywhere. Hopefully the focus will be on something else. But sadly, I don't have much hope for many of our university students. I think that there needs to be some structural changes there. And they're not going to be celebrating, even though the people of Iran and the Middle East will be.
Well, that's a great irony, isn't it, James?
It is a great irony. And also, all of this puts the Albanese government into sort of a tricky position here. And just to sort of bring a domestic matter into this, with the return of the ISIS brides here that the government has been keeping at arm's length, but that they're involved on some level on, does this make that calculation even tougher for them?
I think it does. I noticed in Albanese's statement, the one thing he didn't mention was Israel. He just couldn't bring himself to say that. He did say, he supports the US in Iran, even though Israel led the operation. So I think the government is still very conflicted, as we heard different messages from Penny Wong and from the Prime Minister. So it's definitely a concern. The ISIS brides issue isn't going away. And I think they're looking at the polling and seeing that Australians don't want them here. We don't want to import this problem. And we can see what's happened across the Middle East. So why would Australia wanting to be introducing a problem that doesn't exist here?
And Robert, just on that, obviously we've had Bondi, we've had all sorts of horrors, and the Jewish community in Australia has faced all sorts of things. How does the Jewish community in Australia react or feel about the prospect of people who were associated with ISIS, the ISIS brides, returning to live back in Australia?
Well, the Jewish community is very concerned. For what's happening in Iran, we see this, we take it personally. We know they targeted us, they tried to kill us. And again, with the ISIS brides, these are dangerous people, people who took up a Islamist ideology, went all the way to the Middle East to join the most barbaric regime that existed, that was going on, and to bring them back here to introduce these ideas for a community that's already reeling. I mean, we saw at Bondi, it only took 2 people to cause so much death and destruction and devastation to families. So who knows what bringing dozens of people has the potential to do. So there's definitely concern in the Jewish community. There's not much faith in the government to do the right thing. So we're just hoping that the security agencies will be on top of whatever does happen.